ASEAN itself has made the principled decision, and a very important decision, not to allow Myanmar to attend any senior level ASEAN meetings because it has failed to cooperate and make any progress under the 5-point consensus. I think the first thing I'll note is that we think it's really important that ASEAN has taken the principled position itself of not inviting any political level Myanmar representation to any senior ASEAN meetings because the regime has failed to make any substantive progress on the 5-point consensus and frankly has failed to engage meaningfully and productively with ASEAN. So we, the United States, are following that precedent, and so for the upcoming special summit, there will not be a political level representative of Myanmar. And I think it's also important to note that the fact that the regime has been excluded at a senior level from all these ASEAN meetings and now from the US-ASEAN Special Summit is a reflection of the fact that not only does the regime lack legitimacy completely in the eyes of the Myanmar people, but also in the eyes of the international community.
You mentioned the 5-point consensus. What is the status of the 5-point consensus?
So first, let me just say that the United States strongly supports ASEAN in its effort to remain engaged on Myanmar and to push and press the regime to urgently and fully implement the 5-point consensus. We also support the role of the ASEAN Special Envoy and think it's really important as he undertakes his mission and his mandate that he reach out and engage with all the different stakeholders in Myanmar who must have a voice and must play a role in the resolution of the current crisis. Unfortunately, we've seen no sign that the regime is willing to engage productively with ASEAN, and it has made really no progress at all on the 5-point consensus. So that is the current state of affairs, and we will stand by ASEAN and join it in its efforts to bring the regime to the realization that it must stop the violence, it must release detainees, it must allow humanitarian assistance delivery, and it must return the country to a path of inclusive democracy.
Could you share how the United States has supported democracy, promoted democracy in Burma since the February 1st, 2021 military coup?
Thanks for that question. The first thing I'll say is that I myself, and certainly the United States, remain incredibly impressed by the bravery, the courage, the resilience, and the commitment of the Myanmar people in demonstrating their demand for a return to democracy and imposing military rule. We have been long-standing supporters of the pro-democracy movement, and we are at present also in many ways supporting all those in this country who are peacefully protesting and acting in support of a return to democracy. At the same time, we're also leading the international effort to bring pressure on the regime to change course, to cease the violence, release detainees, and again, return the country to that path of inclusive democracy. And in addition to trying to deny the regime any kind of legitimacy, as we've seen in ASEAN and the United Nations, we're also deploying targeted sanctions against regime leaders, their enablers, their family members, and their business and military interests to, again, force them to change course. But it's important also, I think, to note that even as we undertake those sanctions, we are ensuring that they are indeed targeted and avoid any adverse impact on the Myanmar people who are already suffering greatly at the hands of the regime. It is really the younger generation, Gen Z as they refer to themselves here in Myanmar, who have been leading the movement to restore democracy. They have experienced a period of some degree of political and economic liberalization, and they are adamant, absolutely adamant, that they are not going to return to the previous periods of military rule. They want democracy. They want a future where they can determine their own fates and build their own lives as they choose. And they really, as I said, are the backbone of this movement to return this country to democracy. And I know that they take great solace and support from the support that they get from the international community, and in particular, I think, from their counterparts throughout Southeast Asia and the global community. So to the extent that others in Southeast Asia of that generation and more broadly can continue to signal support for the people of Myanmar, and particularly for their youth counterparts in this country, and frankly demand that their governments continue to bring pressure to bear on the military regime, I think that can help speed a resolution of the current situation.
Well, both our missions, as well as the U.S. government, will be continuing to discuss this issue, push for change. This issue will be a top topic in the upcoming U.S.-ASEAN Special Summit. I thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you so much for your time.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks very much.